And we have a demonstration farm and planted a church and partnered with a local Ugandan ministry that oversees the church. So it's a pretty holistic approach.
You guys have done like library as well?
Right. We both of the schools have a library. We started out with education, and we quickly realized that you can't help a child go to school if he's also hungry, malnourished, sickly, doesn't have clean water. And so as overwhelming as it was to have a partially built primary school, we quickly realized we need to address the other problems of the community as well, because children can't thrive. Really, all of the problems of a community tend to affect children the most. So we identified 5 pathways. We call them our pathways of transformation. They are water and sanitation and hygiene. Typically in the development world, they call that WASH. And education, health, spiritual growth, and then income generation and food security programs for the community. Yeah. So it's a holistic approach now.
So that people know, HEED Uganda is in rural Uganda, right?
Right.
Tell us about how rural you guys are.
We're really rural. We are in one of the poorest districts of Uganda, and we are about 100 kilometers, so about 65 miles from the capital.
Kampala.
You go Kampala, and you go out a main road about 60 miles, and then you turn left and go south for about 12 miles on a dirt road to get to where our project is. And when we started working there, the reason HEED happened is God brought me to this village with a purpose that we couldn't fulfill. But that village had no clean water, no health care, no electricity.
How did you even get to Uganda? I mean, tell us the story about how this even started, because you just were an Edmund's mom.
I was totally an Edmund's mom.
Edmund's moms with 3 boys.
3 boys.
And I know that because we had 5 girls, and we were kind of raising our kids at the same time.
Yep, 3 boys in co-op elementary school. So I worked 1 half day per child in the classroom. And really way back when my kids were little, I had seen a World Vision infomercial. And there was this woman walking hut to hut in a community in Uganda. And she was having this tremendous impact. And I remember everything about the infomercial, and it just planted this seed that someday I want to go to Uganda, and I'd love to work with a woman like that who is making an impact in a community. Literally, my idea was to, follow along behind somebody on one short-term mission trip. What ended up happening is I ended up in a village exactly the same scenario as that woman on the World Vision infomercial, only there was nobody to follow.
Wow. So how did that happen? I mean, you just went with...
So, crazy enough, I think God sometimes has things pop out of your mouth and you think, why did I say that? And I was having an Easter dinner with my brother and his family, and we were talking about summer vacation plans. And we often did a group trip together, maybe up north to Whistler or maybe down south to Oregon, to Sun River. And so we were batting around ideas, and out of my mouth pops, for the first time ever, someday I really want to go to Uganda. And they all kind of looked at me like, well, that's a weird thing to say. And then my sister-in-law said to me, I don't know if you know this, but we built a classroom in memory of my brother John, who had died of AIDS. And as a legacy to him, they, through an older couple in their church, Westminster Chapel in Bellevue, they built a classroom, and then the school got named after her brother. It's called the John T. Miller School. And she said, I think they're sending over a container to help set up the school. I think they're going to be interviewing kids from the community and placing them in the classroom. And, I think you could go over and help. And I thought, I'm not a nurse. I'm not an accountant. I haven't been to Bible school. I don't really have a lot to offer to a mission team. But they need a co-op mom, and I'm a co-op mom. I can do this.
Every trip needs a mom.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how old the people are.
Yeah. But they needed somebody. I wasn't a teacher, but I was used to assisting teachers. So we started talking about going, and so it was spring, and we decided to go in October, and I was going to bring my middle son, and she was going to bring her oldest daughter. And then literally once we started planning that, all hell broke loose. So that would be when my oldest son, Eric, was on a mission trip with you and got hit by a car in the crosswalk.
Don't go on a trip with me.
So
Eric ran across the street. We had like 80 kids with us, and we were running up the street, and Eric literally decided he saw a friend. He runs across the street right in front of a car. Car hits him. He ends up in the hospital.
ICU with a ruptured spleen.
Yeah, which actually I think ended up. Now he's in medicine. Kind of because of that, huh?
Well, part of that experience. Yeah. So
there's some redeeming quality.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I just, and then my middle son, Spencer, had blown out his knee and had surgery, and he started to reject the graft. And
but you still went.
I still went. But I literally, my sister-in-law planned the whole thing. And it's, in retrospect, I look back that, like, wow, there were lots of curveballs being thrown to try and keep me from going. We had a window washer fall off his ladder right in front of me and splat on our patio while I was on the phone with a doctor trying to figure out what to do with these neurological problems Spencer was having. So it was...
You had a lot of opportunities to say no.
I did, yeah. Spencer came to Uganda with me with a big knee brace on.
Wow.
And, but that trip changed everything.
You said earlier, God always initiates. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so even back then, it's interesting to hear the story of God is always initiating, even from that infomercial that you saw on TV, putting that into your mind and then bringing it up at a summer event and then putting this in place, and then the first kind of real opportunity there, you go over and you see, and it's like, wow.
Right.
This is where I'm supposed to be.
Such powerful example, though, because I think, like you said, you had a lot of opportunity to say no. And isn't that like life? I mean,
oh my gosh.
You have an opportunity, you get, a little vision for it, but then all of these things happen and you want, everything inside of you says, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that.
Right.
No, I don't want to do that, But, there has to be that faith over fear.
Well, the enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy.
Exactly.
And so he wants to take that and, kill it as quick. And he attacked you pretty heavily.
Yeah.
I mean, like the son in ICU, hit by the car, one with the blown out knee. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was a long summer with two teenage boys who could have no activity.
So you got to Uganda, and you got to this village.
Right.
What was the moment?
So the first thing really that happened is that trip was about going to the John T. Miller School, which is just outside of Kampala and about 3 hours from where we now serve. It was the hook that God used. So the pastors that oversaw that school had gone out to a very remote place and they had gone on a Ugandan mission trip. And they went to our district and did ministry, and with a church within their organization. And what they found by Ugandan standards was so bad that they said, we'll do what we can, which is we'll move ourselves out of our offices and we'll bring as many kids as will fit. We'll bring the worst off children, the orphans, and really neglected kids. And so they brought 17 children from the village where we now serve. And they were in 2 connected tiny rooms, maybe 10 by 10. And there were 17 children and 4 bunk beds.
Wow.
And I met those kids our first morning there. And within about an hour, the Lord made it clear to me, that still small voice. And the first thing he said as he laid out this plan that led to where we are today was, I brought you here for these children. And all of a sudden it all made sense. And there was this bond that we had with those 17 children. And we made one trip out to, we mostly spent time at the school, but then we did go visit the village where the kids were from. And it was the one really horrible day I had on that whole trip. It was, I felt like I had left planet Earth, truly. I had never been in a place like that where the despair was so heavy. It was like it was on you. And the children were in such bad condition. We met at the local church, which was kind of leaning one direction. We're hoping it's not going to fall on us while we're in there.
Just a little shack?
Yeah, kind of. I think it was, they call it wattle. So like balled up mud between sticks, and then they tried to plaster it, and it had a sheet metal roof, so it was like an oven in there. And they sat us up facing all of the people, and all the children were down in front. And they had like white spots all over their head because they had fungus on their head, and the big bellies, and ragged clothes. I don't think any of them had a pair of shoes on their feet. My mother's heart was just like, this is not okay. And they're looking at us like, we were the family of John T. Miller, and the John T. Miller School is helping the kids. And so they wanted to know what we were going to do to help all these kids. And I just wanted to run. I remember there was a wasp nest in the wall of the church, and these black wasps were coming out of the wall and dive bombing our faces. and they're looking at us, and they're saying, no, don't bat them away because more will come. And I'm thinking, okay, this is fantastic. I was literally like rivers of sweat running down, and I'm trying, and they think that we have this message from God for them, right? These people have assembled, they're waiting for us, and I'm thinking, what can I possibly say to these people?
Wow.
I have, I'm a mom from Edmonds.
Yeah.
And I'm here. Yeah, so.
What happened?
What happened? Wow, so fast forward. So that trip, so we spent the day there. We go back to the John T. Miller School. I'm feeling a heaviness. I woke up in the morning weeping inside my mosquito net at 4 a.m. because of jet lag. And I was sobbing. And at the same time kind of having a conversation with the Lord. Yeah. And the Lord said, I'm having you weep for children who are too broken to weep for themselves. Wow. And so I came home with this this heaviness for what my mother's eyes had seen. And God began speaking vision from that place. And one day, I was driving across 88th Avenue, which both of our houses were off 88th Avenue at that time. I was driving across this little bit of a bridge across the Chase Lake Bog. And it was a cloudy day, and I was just heavy of heart. When I came home, I started to do research on the situation of children in Uganda, and I found out that they had 2 million orphans in a country the size of the state of Oregon. And then I started trying to visualize, okay, what's 2 million orphans? And that would be, like 30 baseball stadiums full of orphan children, that I started trying to picture that. And so I was kind of ruminating on the condition of children and Africa and, specifically Uganda. And just then the sun broke through the clouds, and I felt that still small voice of God say, it's like you're looking at a tapestry, but you're looking at the wrong side. You're looking at the back, where it just looks like a tangled mess. But if you would turn it over, there's a pattern. And there's a beautiful pattern. And the pattern is my people. And over in the Word, I tell my people to care for the widows and orphans. What you do for the least of these, you do unto me. And so that was kind of the first thing that God let me kind of experience his heart. And his heart was broken for the children too, but his calling is for his people to intervene. And so that was kind of the first step. And then one morning, and we were, my sister-in-law and I were meeting with organizations trying to find somebody who knew what they were doing that could take over the care of those 17 children in 4 bunk beds with no shoes and no support. And we just kept running into closed doors. And at the same time, God was birthing something in me, so I kept sharing my experience. And people actually started to give me money to do something. And I didn't want to put it in my personal account, so then we needed, you can't open a bank account that's not in your own name, so then we needed an entity. So I'm finding out about EIN numbers and all, and, my brain is just going. I remember Jacob Chaco, who was an elder at the church that we both attended at the time. And I was having a hard time containing the passion that God was birthing in me. And I remember Jacob Chaco, he said, Julie, it's like fire shut up in your bones, isn't it? And I was like, yes, I'm so glad somebody understands, because I don't even understand what's happening to me. So, all of this is happening. And one morning, I'm starting to realize God is not going to let me give this calling away. He's calling me to stand with those 17 kids, is what I thought it all was at that point.
Which 17 kids is still a big responsibility.
Right.
That's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Right. My husband
about taking care of them.
Yep. My husband was kind of like, what are you doing?
And your husband's pretty, he's a lawyer, so he's pretty logical.
Exactly. Yeah. And so anyway, all of this is happening, and I wake up one morning, and there's 4 words just pulsing through my head, and it was help, evangelize, disciple, equip. Help, evangelize, disciple, equip. And it was just running through my head, and finally it was like, wait, what is this? And yeah. And it was almost like God was like, finally, you're listening. Okay, here's the plan. First, you help them. Evangelize, you give them the gospel. They need hope. They need to have a purpose. They need to know their creator. You disciple them in it. It's not they need to grow up and have roots. And then you equip them. And you're way back at help. Would you just relax? You can figure out how to help. And so that kind of became the roadmap. And what's amazing is as I've grown in this calling that the Lord has given me, I've read about good development practices and transformational development, and all of those practices really fall within these guardrails that God gave me. It's not enough to help. You have to focus on equip. Stay away from one-way giving and aid. Yeah. It's not enough to give them the gospel and then go away and not help them grow in their faith and develop roots. And so right away, we focused on discipleship and equipping, which is more than just education, right? God was calling us to more than just school. He was calling us to equipping. Mm-hmm. So back to, we needed bank account and needed a name, and about 20 minutes apart, a person that I was now helping us in Uganda, and Heidi Davis, both communicated to me, one by Yahoo Instant Messenger back in that day, and by text message. They both sent me the message that said, what if you rearranged the letters and we called it HEED? Huh. And I remember, typing in on my phone the definition of HEED, and it was to stop and make important, to pay attention. And I just started to bawl because that was God's heart for those kids. Yeah. I was just to stop and make important, right? And
wow, that's awesome.
And I've just been a voice for those kids.
Yeah. So. And you have 800 of them now.
Yeah. Yeah.
From 17 to 800.
Well, and it's not just that, it's the whole village.
Right.
I mean, you went from a small little, typical what you would think of a couple of mud hut type things, right, to now it's become a center for that entire area, right?
It has.
You can't have, if you go on HEEDuganda.org, right?
Right.
And look at the buildings. They are not just, mud huts. You, by the grace of God, have seen some amazing buildings. It's beautiful. Beautiful buildings.
It's becoming a really nice campus, and the heaviness that was once there, visitors that would come with us, you could feel it. Yeah. There was a darkness, an oppression in the area. And I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, we started to feel that lifting.
Toughest moment you ever went through in building HEED? Was there ever a moment where you're like, what am I doing? Where am I? Toughest moment.
Oh, so many. Which could I choose?
The worst one.
I think I'll choose the most overwhelming moment. And it was, we'd had a garage sale at your house. And at the end of the garage sale, the gal who had the garage sale, I said to her, what would you like to do with the money? And she said, I was thinking of all those other children back in the village. Weren't there 33 orphans? And I remember thinking, oh, wow, that's a branch. We're trying to take care of 17 kids around Kampala, school up in the village. And but I knew about what it would cost to send kids to the government school. And I calculated the math, and it was $1,980. And I was pretty relieved because I didn't think a garage sale would make that much money. And it made $1,989.50, and there was a load to go to the dump. God gave us literally the exact amount of money to send those kids to school up in the village. So on my second trip, my one-day small side trip was to go up to the village and pay school fees for the 33 worst off kids. And I figured, if they only go to school for 1 year, 1 year is better than nothing.
Yeah.
And
At least we've done something.
exactly. We have $1,980. Well, I get up to the village, and the government school has no teachers because the government hasn't paid the teachers in over 6 months.
Wow.
And there's literally no place to send the kids to school. I found kids at a bench under a tree with a chalkboard leaned up against a tree as a school. It was so pathetic and heartbreaking and overwhelming. And after visiting that school under the tree and the empty government school, the pastors tell us everybody's assembled at the church waiting for you to sign their kids up for school. And it was literally the most overwhelming. I'm like, how can I face these people? Where do they think I'm going to send their kids to school? And I literally wanted to run. I was like, where's the helicopter? Just get me out of here. Tom,
the word spread.
the word, right. And
this lady from Edmonds, Washington
Right.
is going to pay my kids.
to go to school, only there's no school.
Wow.
So what we ended up doing is borrowing that church with the wasps that I never wanted to go to again, and dividing it into 3 sections and bringing a teacher up to the village. And it was, you know what, we have enough money to pay 1 teacher for a year. And so
There you go.
there you go.
That's how it started.
The WASP school.
The WASP school. Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
an amazing story. And greatest success that you've seen out of it? What's been the crowning jewel for you?
Seeing some of those 17 kids grow up, we've stood with them, so we just got power to the village, which I never thought I would see.
Wow.
And it was coordinated by one of those first 17 kids.
Wow. And by power, you mean electricity.
Electricity.
Lights.
Lights.
Things that we take for granted every day.
Radio, yeah,
Right.
yeah. The first night somebody plugged in a radio and we had a spontaneous dance party. But it was the greatest, by a porch light at our teacher houses. But it was coordinated by Gideon, who is one of those first 17 kids, and he became an electrician, and
Wow.
now he's back in school to become an electrical engineer.
Wow.
And Gideon handled all of the paperwork that had to happen for power to come to the village.
Power to the village. I mean, I couldn't imagine living without power.
Yeah.
Some people can't even live without coffee.
They didn't even, coffee, but they didn't even have water.
Right.
When you got there, they were walking for water, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And still are walking for water. We're still working on adequate water for the community. We've done water harvesting for the school. So we have adequate water for the school when rains are enough. We drilled a well, but we don't get enough water.
So you have to collect the water from the rains into
Yes.
barrels?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Right.
Have to,
Yeah, so we have to be really careful
Water
how much
farmers.
water that we use because the rains are becoming more inconsistent. So we have plans to drill an extra deep well. We have a well that is about 150 feet deep, and there's now equipment in Uganda that can go 450 feet deep, and we've done fracture trace analysis, and we have 2 places on our land with intersecting fractures that we think would be a good place to strike an aquifer that would hopefully supply the community with water, because we're still working on that. They're still getting water from ponds that you would not put your foot in.
Ponds that you would not put your foot in. So, wow, that's intense. What's the biggest need that you have, and how can people find and follow you? And if they want to connect, how can they best do that?
I would say that well is probably our biggest need right now. and a well with a distribution system. And that's like a $50,000 project through a water ministry that we've connected with in Uganda. And you can find heeduganda.org online. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram. You can get updates on both of those pages. We don't put a ton out there. When we have something to say, we post it.
Sure.
So we had exciting news recently. The clinic that we started in 2020.
Yeah.
Mission Bridge helped us get some maternity supplies, and we were able to hire a midwife. And just last week, the first baby ever was delivered in Chachtonga. Moms had been having to take a motorcycle 12 miles down a dirt road that's very bumpy, not very passable if it's rainy, and to the nearest place to deliver. And I sure would not want to be in labor on the back of a motorcycle.
Down a dirt road, hill, bumping.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Amy doing that? Dave, you're having a baby here soon.
We'd probably. Well, I don't know what we'd be doing at that point, Dave. That's a whole other topic. I don't think we want to go into that. That could get me in trouble too. So let's we're gonna pass on all that.
Yeah.
But I hear you told me just a little bit ago they named that first child.
They did. They put our family name in her name. Her name is Lily Treasure Secrist Chitabira. I'm not sure I said her last name correctly.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing.
It's a huge honor, and it's actually our own nurse practitioner who delivered the first baby. And now that we have power, we have an ultrasound machine.
Wow.
So things that are just mind-blowing to me, because when I was first there, I felt like I walked back in time.
Yeah.
Like Little House on the Prairie kind of, dirt roads, outhouses or latrines, not even as nice as an outhouse, no power. And
these are your people.
Oh, they're my
people. This is your
people.
tribe.
They're my people.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's amazing.
They're definitely my people.
That's great.
Well, this has been an awesome time today that we've been able to spend with Julie and HEED. So follow Julie, follow HEED, hook up with them on Instagram, on Facebook, and look at that well is a super important thing. Could you imagine? I could not imagine going out to a puddle or a pond on my property and scooping water, muddy water, and thinking, well, I got to get 8 of these down today. You know what I mean? So you think about just clean water, even with all the accomplishment and everything. So, give to HEED. If you think about it, write a big check to HEED, an amazing organization, and help all of these amazing kids and people and village, get clean water, because it's something that we take for granted every day.
Yeah.
And if 50 people listen and everyone gives $1,000, there's a well.
There you go.
So it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. So
amazing.
Let's do that, right? That's an amazing thing to be able to do. I'm Dave Wescott, CEO of Evergreen Brands. And follow me on LinkedIn, David Wescott. Follow me on Facebook, David Wescott. If you liked this, give it a share, give it a like, pass it on. And then, of course, follow Enbridge. And I'll let you wrap us up, Dave, with Enbridge.
Follow us at enbridge.global. As well on LinkedIn. And again, thank you so much. You can change the world. Get that little vision in your heart. You'll have opportunities to say no, but keep on following after that, and who knows?
Change the world.
Who knows what will happen? Change the world.
Because no matter what you're going through, giving to an organization like this will make your day better.
Yeah, well.
In fact, as we close, I'm going to tell one story before we close, because I know we're way over time. And the thing about it is that last week, there's a gal in my office, and she ordered some fertilizer. And when she ordered this fertilizer, she was supposed to order 100 sticks of fertilizer. True story. And she ended up ordering 100 boxes of fertilizer. So we get a delivery truck of fertilizer, $2,800 worth of fertilizer. Worst day. And she's just upset about it. And then we've got a franchise owner who's flying somewhere, and she gives him the wrong time for his flight. So he misses the flight to Hawaii in total. So we rebook him $2,300 to get it out the same day. That's one day's worth of mistakes. So she calls me on the phone, and she's like, I'm so upset. This has been such a bad day. I've made two. I said, hey, go do something nice for somebody else. Go do something that'll bless somebody. And then later she goes and she says, and Dave told me to do something nice for somebody, and I did something nice. And she's crying while she's telling her mom this story, because here's the thing, no matter what you're going through, no matter where in your life you're at, as long as you give back, as long as you put somebody else ahead of yourself, no matter what it is, it always works out.
Yeah.
And guess what? She didn't lose her job.
Yeah.
She didn't get hassled about it.
Yeah.
Because mistakes happen. But you know what? She was able to take that moment and then make somebody else's day better. And everybody who's listening to this call has the opportunity to make somebody's day better in a place where they really need to have that day better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No
Great
water.
story.
I could not
Great life
imagine
story.
not being able to go to the sink and turn on the water.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
Granted. Yeah.
And I don't think that I could drink muddy water at this particular point. I mean, I guess if I really had to, I could. But I mean, so think
What
of
if
the
that's
lives
all
you
you'd
can change.
ever known?
If that's all I'd ever known,
Yeah.
I would get a well and probably put my name of your family in my kid's name, because I can see the amazing impact that you've had really in the world. You changed the world, because you think about that kid who's going to go become, an electrician, and then, he helps bring power to the village, and now he wants to become an electrical engineer. His life is forever changed.
Yeah.
And all of those 800 kids who are in the school, their lives are now changed. So it's giving to an amazing organization. So we're blessed to have you here today. We've gone over on time, but it's been an amazing morning, and we're so grateful to have been able to learn about HEED.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for the opportunity to share.
Thanks.
Have an awesome day.